As most, if not all of you know, today marks 10 years since the terrorist attack that leveled the Twin Towers in New York City on September 11, 2001, most commonly known as 9/11. Now, I remember the day very well when it happened. It was, like I said, 10 years ago. I was in 4th grade. I was 9, almost 10. My birthday was like the following week. For some reason, it seems weird to me that I experienced such like a great tragedy like in my lifetime, because it's one of those things that you read about in your textbooks and you think, or you don't like realize that something like this could actually happen like while you're alive. I don't know why it's so weird to me. It could be because I'm so young, because a lot of people like way older than I am have experienced so much more than just 9/11. And it's possible that when they were young and they experienced something like this for the first time, they could have felt this way too. I don't know. Anyway, I remember when it happened pretty well. I don't even remember anything else that happened that day, but I remember it was during school. We were in class. I don't know what we were doing in class, but whatever it was, we weren't doing it anymore. Because like everything just stopped that day, like when it happened, and like it's the only thing I remember. So it's like anything else that happened that day was just like null and void, basically. But I remember our principal was he was home sick or recovering from sickness or something like that, and he was watching the news. It was all over the news, so he heard about it pretty quickly, and he called the school. And, soon enough, the whole school knew. Every student, every faculty member. I was pretty young. I didn't even know what to think at that point. Like, there was just this fear and panic. Like, are we all just gonna die? Or, I don't know. And so, eventually, we all, like, at different age groups started huddling into rooms to either listen or watch, like, the news. At the time, I was young, so we... I huddled into some room and we listened around this radio, because there wasn't like TVs in every room or anything like that, so it's not like we could all just watch it. And the older students got to actually watch it on a TV and actually see what happened, like the tower hitting and it actually collapsing. I didn't get to see that until I got home later. But I was in some room with a whole bunch of other students, and we were listening to a radio, and President Bush was speaking. He was talking about what happened, what he was doing, to help, and, just things like that. And I can't help but think we were let home early that day, because the next thing I remember was being at home and watching it in front of the living room, and it was still pretty early in the day. Although, frankly, I don't actually remember even the car ride home. I just remember being in the living room and watching it. This was my first time actually seeing what happened. So I was watching on the news, myself, my mom, my 2 sisters, we were watching to see what happened. And, the plane coming in, hitting the tower, and it collapsing, and they were playing this footage all day long, and, there was news people already down there, and they were showing live, the decimated tower. Again, I was pretty young when this happened, so I didn't even know what to think. Like, I was just in panic, and I couldn't take any of this in and, like, comprehend it at all. But all I thought was, we're gonna die, and it's like, this is just the beginning or something, I don't know. But then I remember I left the room for some reason, probably to put, like, my backpack or something away. And then I heard my mom like screaming downstairs, and she was screaming like, oh my gosh, and so I ran back down to the TV, and she just started screaming, saying that like another plane hit the other tower, and I was watching, and they kept showing it back and forth, and everybody, even like the newscasts were like all like freaking out, but then suddenly, like live, I watched it like start to crumble and fall, and this was maybe a few minutes later. And, I saw the first one, like, replays of it actually collapsing, but it was, like, a million times more devastating to actually watch it live, like, as it happened, like, crumble to the ground. My mom, my sisters, and I were just watching it in, like, this horrible silence, and it was really... I don't remember exactly how I felt at that moment, but I just remember being so scared and, like, so, like, in this panic and, like, in horror of, like, how anybody could do this, you know? And this didn't, I mean, these were the World Trade Centers. This didn't just devastate the U.S. There was plenty of other people from other countries that were in those towers, too. At some point, I noticed, though, that there were people actually, like, jumping from the tower. And, yeah, I mean, I wasn't that old, but even at that age, I knew that they would never be able to survive the fall. I broke the silence eventually and asked my mom why they were jumping, you know, because, I mean, they were going to die either way, I guess, but why were they, you know, jumping out of the building? And she, you know, very plainly told me that, you know, that they might have jumped out of, you know, some hope of surviving, but otherwise they knew that there was no way they could get out in time. We would have rather have jumped out and fallen than being crumbled by the building. Which is a really, really weird situation to be put in. Like, you're thinking, like, okay, this building is about to collapse on me. Would I rather let it collapse on me and, like, just let that kill me, or should I just jump to my death? Now, I'm not going to argue if that was some sort of suicide, people who jumped out, because, to be quite frank, they were going to die either way. Now, myself or my family didn't know anybody who could have been in there. I did know other people who did know people who could have been in there. One person actually told me that he actually had some friends who would have been inside the building at the time, but they actually, when the tower collapsed, they weren't actually in it. They were literally going out and getting donuts, and that saved their life, was the fact that they went over to, like, Dunkin' Donuts and got coffee and donuts, and, you know, they came back to a building that had collapsed. I can't imagine what they must have felt like when they knew that if they didn't even go out to get donuts, that they would have been in that building. So I'm sorry if, you know, this video is pretty depressing, but it was a very real thing that happened, and 10 years marks a pretty significant time. And the fact that I actually was a part of it, I mean, I may not have necessarily been there or have known people who were in there, but I still remember it really well. If there's something significant you want to share about the event that you personally noticed or felt, or just want to share your point of view, just feel free to do so in the comments. That's mostly why I wanted to post this video, was to allow people to share their personal experience with it. You don't have to. For some people it may be way too devastating to even speak of it. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you took something out of it, and I'll see you guys later.